The journey for any stringed instrument begins with the wood. For this ukulele, I've chosen an exceptional piece of Hawaiian koa for the top, and a highly figured book match set of koa for the back. For the design, I've based it on Craig Sullivan's drawings of a soprano ukulele and adapted it to my needs. Here, the shop supervisor, Nika, is carefully going over my design, making sure I've crossed every T and dotted every I. The actual building process begins with the rosette around the sound hole. Here I've bent a piece of bloodwood into a circle that will be bordered by black and white lines. This gets inlaid into the top, glued, flushed down, and then the sound hole is cut out. Next, pieces of spruce will get glued to the underside to act as the bracing to help support the top against the pull of the strings, as well as transmit the vibrations from the strings. These will get pared down and shaped with planes and chisels to conform with the design that I've come up with. You can see here that some of the braces go through larger supporting braces to make sure the vibrations can transmit over the entire top. Next, the thin flat strips of koa need to get bent into the shape of the instrument. Wetting them down with water and using a hot pipe, the fibers of the wood can gradually be coaxed into curves, and then this gets clamped into the form where it will dry and basically take that shape for the life of the instrument. Blocks of wood join the two sides at the top and the bottom, and then kerfing strips are added to the rim to provide a wider gluing surface for the top and then later the back to attach the top sides. Gets glued to those sides using as many clamps as I can possibly fit, and Mika is very careful to check everything, make sure everything is nice and solid. Buttresses are added to the two main support braces for extra strength. Then the back gets prepared for gluing. Because it's a two-piece back, a bloodwood strip is added in the center as an accent. Then the back gets its bracing, and again, because it's a two-piece, extra support in the center seam is added. One of the most important jobs, of course, with such a small instrument, and really any instrument, is to put the label in before you glue the back in. Otherwise, it's really hard to work through that tiny hole. Notice the name of this ukulele is Hui Hui, which is Hawaiian for union. The back gets glued on, again with as many clamps as I can fit. With the body complete, all the trim can be added in the same bloodwood that was used in the rosette. First, the end graft to hide the seam between the two sides. Then the binding is bent using the same forms as was used for the sides. A channel must be cut for this binding using specialized hand tools. First for the back, then the binding goes on with tape, and then for the front, which gets an extra ledge for extra black and white lines. With the body complete, work on the neck can begin with a sandwich of Spanish cedar and a strip of koa in the middle for strength and for accent. The headstock gets angled back with a plane, and then we start to work on the joint between the body and the neck. In this case, a dovetail joint that needs to be laid out carefully so that the matching parts will form a tight joint. The sides get cut with a saw, and then the material is hogged out with a little router plane. The joint is tested and adjusted until it fits perfectly. The fretboard is a piece of pau ferro, or Bolivian rosewood. The positions for the frets are marked carefully so that the intonation will be spot on, and then cut with a handsaw. With the slots complete, a small oak leaf can be cut out of a piece of abalone and inlaid into the 12th fret position with a tiny router bit and a Dremel. Additional abalone dots are added for other fret positions, and the whole fretboard is bound in some more bloodwood with some black and white purfling. Next, the inlay for the headstock are cut out from the same piece of abalone, in this case the Acorn logo for Acorn House guitars. They're cut out with a fret saw and then inlaid into a piece of black ebony that's going to be the overlay on the headstock. With the ebony overlay with its abalone inlay complete, the headstock shape can be laid out and cut and formed. Holes for the tuning machines are drilled and the tuning machines are fit into place, temporarily. Then the fret wires put into all those fret slots. The ends are nipped to go over the binding, and then the frets are installed with a hammer and a little glue just to fill the gaps, and the ends are cut and filed down. Unfortunately, as the neck was getting shaped, a couple of small cracks were discovered. Nothing major, not opened, but to be safe, the headstock and the fingerboard were cut away from the neck. All the traces of the old Spanish cedar were chiseled off, and a brand new neck was made. Better to be safe than sorry. After the fingerboard and headstock overlay with their inlays were glued onto the new neck blank, the neck finally got shaped, this time for good. The neck was glued and clamped onto the body, and our shop supervisor did her job and made sure that the neck joint was solid. A bridge was made and positioned, and then after masking off that position, the finishing could be begun. First with a sealing coat of shellac, and then with an oil varnish. The finishing process involves a lot of putting the finish on, sanding it back down to get a nice flat, smooth surface, then putting some more back on, and repeating, building up the smallest layers as possible. It's not how much finish goes on, it's how much you leave on. After getting Nika's approval of the finishing job, the bridge can be glued on. And then finally, the tuners can be installed and the ukulele strung up for the first time.